Hi, welcome to the newsstand. My name is Jason, and I have my co-host here, Don Ford. We also have our guests, Lee and Dave, with us. We have some really cool topics we're going to go over today. We're going to be talking about the recent incident in Nevada.
Can we start with that, actually? I'm unregistered still, but I heard that Nevada had some shenanigans going on.
Yes, they did. We are going to start with that, and we're going to also talk about voter registration overall, especially California.
That might be pertinent to you under the circumstances.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the data breach and some,
how that might be affecting us.
Yeah,
still.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about why we're still in this and how we're going to fight till the end. And we're also going to talk about the plan moving forward, the strategy to win California, and all the remaining states.
Lots of canvassing.
Yeah, exactly.
And the canvassing is going to be the big thing. We're going to jump into that in 1 second, but I just, canvassing, the door-to-door knocking is the thing that wins elections for us. So, we can't stress enough that how much the face-to-face needs to happen. So, David, how much do you know about Nevada right now? What do you even know about, you heard in Nevada something happened.
Yeah.
What? We kind of left him in the dark.
That there were police officers, and actually, I don't know what was happening in Nevada at all. I just know that there were police officers stopping something that has to do with elections.
Right.
Wow, that's
Very broad in general, right?
Yeah, that's
Right.
an oddly specific part of the whole operation. Yeah, that's a pretty accurate slice of that part, the 1%, if you will. Basically in Nevada, Nevada's really complicated because some people are saying that our democracy was overthrown the other night. Before we get into it, you have to understand that Nevada has a complicated caucus process, so there's multiple stages that everything goes at. Now, the caucus in Nevada was very early in the election process, and there was numerous shenanigans associated with the election. I'm just going to come out and say it. There's a lot of talk that Harry Reid, who's a member of the Senate, and he's in Nevada, who's been around forever, he just won re-election, got his casino connections to bring people in to pad the caucus, One Direction, the original caucus. And there's also 2 busloads of people that I've spoken to people, we have video, they walked right past registration, none of them had valid ballots. Now what happened is, that's really critical here, is that going into the second phase, they go and verify all these results, and they discovered that 20% of the people that voted the entire thing did not have valid ballots. So essentially, going into the second tier, the entire 20% of delegates was up for grabs again. So we, the grassroots organization, end of the campaign, organized very strongly, and we got tons and tons of sign-up delegates there because they had to allow new people to sign up. Heavily out-organized, and Bernie took the state by a large margin. Now, we weren't upsetting the will of the voters. We were doing exactly what they told us to do, that 20% were up for grabs, and that they wanted people...
So we need to be clear that is totally playing by the rules. It's not...
Yeah,
because the mainstream media is going to say, oh, Sanders supporters don't know the rules.
Or we're trying to usurp the caucus vote or something, and that's not accurate in any way.
And one more important thing to know about the first round of voting, the caucus, is that it's a head count vote. Okay. So when people go to these caucuses, all of Bernie Sanders supporters will sit on one side, and all of Hillary supporters sit on the other side. So essentially what they did was bring these busloads of people in and just sort of had them sit in the crowd and be counted, even though their ballots weren't valid.
So basically they were making sure that Hillary had a win no matter what in that state, and then but didn't go through the actual paperwork that they needed to do because they were in such a rush. Right. So that came to bite them in the butt in the second phase, and we figured that out with Bernie taking the state. Now, when we took so much, it's kind of expected we'll take more in the next round because Washington has a similar process, and Nevada, you can do that. So we're getting ready for the third round, which was this last weekend in Nevada. Now, first off, it was going to be on Sunday originally, and then they moved it to Saturday. And this all started because they put somebody in charge, name is...
Roberta Lang?
Roberta Lang,
yeah.
Who is internet famous right now.
Okay, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah,
she's the chairwoman.
She's the chair of the Nevada Democratic Party. So each Democratic Party of each state has its own chair. and they verify results and make rules and follow something called parliamentary procedure.
Okay, I know what that is.
Okay.
High school.
Yeah, in high school it's exactly. Oh, this sounds great, guys. But
Speaking of high school, one of the ways that they often decide these sort of on the fly rule changes is by a voice vote, which I think is kind of ridiculous. So they literally have a room full of
That's the yay or nay thing, right?
Yeah, over 3,000 people in a room
Shouting?
Yeah, just shouting, and that's
basically
okay.
this
Well,
is
it
one of
sounds
the,
like
this is
they
one of
would've
the
won.
but it's one of the rules
You know?
that they changed was that every vote would be certified by a yay or nay count because it gave her the power to unilaterally decide what was actually happening or not.
Okay.
Now there is a system to like challenge these. Now, okay, so let's start at the top. So first off, she got put in charge. She tried to change the rules and the way the delegates are counted.
Roberta Lang.
Yeah, Roberta Lang.
She's the chair.
Yeah,
Okay.
it didn't really work. So then she tried to put us back to first round rules. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to go back to first round, saying that was the first round of the caucus, where the 20% of the ballots were counted as invalid.
Yes.
So they wanted to go back to a count where 20% of the count was invalid, or they weren't going to be happy.
Yeah, basically say that the results of that vote are the final vote. The second round was more accurate because it didn't have that padding, and we won that round. Bernie won that round.
Yeah, what she doesn't know, and we're going to get to this, is we've been playing a game with game of chicken a little bit with the campaign, and that is to try to get them to do something so extreme that they couldn't say they misspoke, they couldn't say it was an accident, they couldn't say and slither their way out of it in some way or another. We had to stick them with something that was so blatant and outlandish, and ultimately by the end of the day we got it.
That was
and
and
really here's it's even worse than that.
Oh.
And the real irony is she did this only to gain 2 delegates out of 2,000. So she totally just took this huge, we're going to get exactly what happened, but so basically they changed the rules so that the delegates are going to be counted differently. We get past that anyways. They started that by going at 9:30, holding a yay or nay roll call, because they told all the Hillary people to be there at 9 o'clock. The sign-in was until 10. So we still had almost 300 people still signing in at 9:30 when they called a voice count to put these new rules into play.
Oh, wow.
We couldn't, because of the way the new rules are set up, there was no challenge to the new rules. It also gave the people in charge lifetime appointments, essentially, because they're allowed to only run for re-election. The state of Nevada says you have to run for re-election, but they changed the rule that basically says that you only run for re-election if you want to. So it's essentially they've lifetime appointed these people at the same time.
Oh.
And they took unilateral control over the whole party, and they reset it back to the thing. So we were supposed to gain about 6 to 8 delegates. That was we were set to gain 8, I think is what they told me, and that's what I heard.
The final round there was 12 available.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, even though we had a near dead split, the count of delegates is like 10. Like what's the final?
The final vote was 1695. For Hillary and 1662 for Bernie.
And they got there, keep in mind, by invalidating 64 people's registrations and just saying, no, you don't count. Now, when 8 of those people got through to prove that they counted, they slammed the door shut on everybody and then did the official count. Wouldn't let them in the room.
So she won by 33, and they cut 64 people. So you can see that he would have won by 30 if those people actually got through.
And so a near tie equated to, what was the final delegate split?
They gave 7 to Hillary and 5 to Bernie, just for this round. Now the first round, the caucus on February 20th, Hillary got 13 and Bernie got 10. So
I think they went
50. Add that together, it's 20 for Hillary and 15 for Bernie, and that is the final result. Plus there's 8 superdelegates.
And the point is, it's a near dead split, but she ended up with a massive more amount of delegates for no clear reason. They gave her a huge thing.
Percentage-wise, 1695 versus 1662 is 50.4% versus 49.5%. So if you actually apply that to 12 delegates, it's an even 6 split.
Okay, yeah.
But she ended up getting 7, and he ended up getting 5. So mathematically, there's some weird wiggle room.
Because the percentage makes it half, but she ended up with more than half because
they just gave her, because the chair just gave her more.
And that's That's not against the rules?
Well, the thing is, it's according to the government, it's a private organization. Even though we pay for the elections, we pay for everything's publicly funded, it's a private organization. The governor of Nevada, because there was a lawsuit challenging them to follow their own rules that said they didn't want to get involved with private politics. Now, unfortunately, this is probably going to set precedent in other states, which really is a very scary thought. The other judges not wanting to get involved in holding something that gets public funding, even though we hold everything else that gets public funding accountable. We hold Planned Parenthood, and it only gets public funding for part of its stuff. We hold it accountable for every little detail of all of it. And that kind of goes on and on to every single thing. We're not so... You know.
The caucus is a private...
well, the Democratic Party
is a private party.
It's a private organization.
That wants to run the public of the country.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's...
Yes, wrap your head around that.
Yeah, the party is not... The Republican and Democratic parties are not a branch of the government.
Right.
They are. It's like
it's almost
like a union. It's almost like a union. You know, sort of.
Well, it's actually a political party. I mean,
it's a political party, but it's like a club, basically.
Yeah, it's like a club.
And you're privately trying to run the country in your favor?
Essentially,
well, they're trying to get their candidates elected into office.
And so the Democrats have always been like the voice of the people, and the Republicans have been more on. They have their like private constituents, the people that vote for them, which was like the Christian right, they would often call it. And so that has sort of died out because the Tea Party and all that sort of stuff has really changed. So the Republican powers have jumped from the Republican Party to the puppet masters. You got to look at it like this: we have 3 candidates running for president right now. We have. You've got Trump, which that's the only time I'll say his name this whole show. We have our opposition, the Democratic thing, and then we have Bernie. And basically Bernie and, on the outside, Trump, they represent the new versions of the Democratic and Republican Party. The Hillary represents both parts of the two-party system in one candidate.
Okay.
Even though one could argue that Trump and Hillary are really the same, she represents both parts that used to be 2 separate things. And that's kind of what's so scary about it, because she's playing both. She's even fundraising for Republicans. She's fundraising with NRA. She's fundraising from Cruz. You know who Ted Cruz is?
Yeah, I've heard his name.
Yeah. It's probably something about him being the Zodiac killer. That's possible.
No.
so
His wife did not deny it.
Yeah.
Or the former lead singer of was it Striper?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on. I'm happy we don't have to go there. But so
Nevada held the caucus for the 2 parties to come together. And
No. That's just behind the scenes. The caucus was for the Democratic Party only. We're talking about money, like the people putting money into things. The Democratic caucus was for the Democratic Party only to determine how many delegates were moving on to the Democratic National Committee or Convention, which is where we're having the contested convention, and we have to show up with enough Bernie delegates to challenge it. Now it's split down the middle depending on California goes, so every delegate really counts. And they're doing a lot of dirty tricks with our delegates to invalidate them or take them off the registration rolls, which we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
The registration roll is a major, major issue. That's why you being not registered is like, you're like so many people right now who think they're registered.
Right.
And they're not because they're getting wiped off the rolls, and that's happening to our delegates. So people who are really the strongest Bernie supporters, who they think will vote against Hillary, are being wiped off the rolls and replaced with other delegates until eventually they feel like they get the thing that will vote the way they want.
Oh, wow.
Now the convention is what we were talking about in the last episode.
The delegates add up to the convention, and how we're voting on delegates to vote at the convention. And so they're trying to manipulate every stage of how we choose delegates, to the point that they're putting their people into our delegate count and running them as super strong slates in the delegate process and making it hard to run our actual Bernie people against them. Yeah, they're doing a lot of really, in my opinion, it kind of makes someone invalid to be a president of the free world and be in charge, because she's trying to be a ruler, and we're looking for a president. And George Washington very famously said that our country doesn't need a ruler, and that's why the presidency was set up the way it was, and it didn't need a king because they wanted a king. And here we have someone going against the very founding element of our country as a whole, and everyone's kind of like, oh, it's no, it's not okay. So there I sit my piece.
Well, yeah, and I always go back to the point of Hillary wants all the Bernie Sanders supporters votes so badly, but yet she's not really speaking out against any of the voter suppression, the voter fraud,
manipulation.
Doesn't say
however.
anything about that. It's like
Yeah.
people are
Being
people are
willing
having
to cheat at this level should just automatically mean you're disqualified.
Yeah,
You can't run for president if this is what you're going to do.
There's
And people don't want you.
there's a video of
This goes
her.
against everything it stands for to have to cheat to win. Then
There's a video of her being
You
asked
deserve
about
this.
Nevada, and she gives she's really surprised by the question, and she gives the most I don't know anything.
Yeah,
And the thing
no, I
is,
didn't
hypothetically,
I didn't hear about that.
if she exactly
Sure you didn't.
And first off, if she didn't hear about it, well, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
If she didn't know, why aren't you asking? I mean, it's just every which way you go about it. There's nothing about it.
Yeah, it's like that deer in the
There's nothing.
headlights.
Yeah,
like,
it
you
totally.
catch a teenager
We should. If we get a chance, it's going in.
About what happened in Nevada. Did you hear about what happened in Nevada at the Nevada convention? You didn't hear about it?
There.
so
Okay.
that's what you want as your president when she's asked major decisions. She's just going to go, I'm not entirely sure about that. I don't know. That's
Wowzers.
great.
Yeah. So anyway,
We
so
want to talk about the booing. Last.
oh god, when they were trying to say they were booing Nina Turner or booing Barbara Boxer.
Well, yeah, it was
Take
Barbara.
a pick. They're pretty unhappy.
Okay, Barbara Boxer.
We've even gotten to the end of this whole thing, too,
Yes.
so we'll get there.
Okay, Barbara Boxer, who first
Who
of
is
all,
Barbara Boxer?
She is what is she? She's from California.
Yeah, she's California
a
senator. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, and by the way, her daughter Nicole is married to Hillary Clinton's brother Tony Rodham. So there's a little bit of a link there. This is also her last year. She's not running for election again.
She's
so she can do
retiring.
whatever she wants and not worry about not being reelected. But essentially, the Sanders supporters were booing against all the corruption and everything that was going down at the convention, and she turns around and says, "You're booing Bernie Sanders. You're booing Bernie Sanders.
You're gonna boo yourself right out of this election."
Yeah, you're booing
which is
yourself.
actually, if you really think about it, she specifically said, "You're booing." We'll get a clip of that. I hope. Maybe.
Thank you so much. I bring a message from Bernie Sanders, and I bring a message from Hillary Clinton. We need civility in the Democratic Party. Civility. Because the whole future of the country is at stake. Now, when you boo me, you're booing Bernie Sanders. Go ahead. You're booing Bernie Sanders. Bernie is my friend. You want to boo Bernie? Boo me. Go on. Go on. You're booing Bernie. You're booing Bernie. Let's hear it for Hillary Clinton. All right. We have the vote. We have the voice. We have victory. Yay.
That is Senator Barbara Boxer from California.
You know something? I grew up in Brooklyn. I am not afraid of bullies. I'm for Hillary Clinton, but she's for all of us. So keep on booing and boo yourselves out of this election. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
So the booing Bernie Sanders thing really kind of it just kills me, because one thing she says is you're booing yourself out of this election, because we have a theory that they're using our Facebooks and people who like boo Hillary, who are like the Never Hillary hashtags, they're using those to find delegates who are severely anti-Hillary to know who to cut, because they're not just cutting 64 delegates. They're cutting people that are moving on to the next round.
Wow.
They're cutting people. I know people that are hard, very dedicated activists, and they've been purged from the process. Now, a couple of them probably shouldn't have moved on, but a few of them should have. So that's...
And they're just itching for the excuse to make us look like troublemakers, like we're,
there's a propaganda
rioting, and
smear
we're
around,
we're not really for the party, because they're for party unity and they want to bring us together, even though there's all this scandal going on, and we're saying no, we're not going to tolerate this scandal, and that's why we're going to go to the end, and we're going to keep voting, and we're going to keep pushing, and we're not going to back out and concede. And so,
everything
is kind of
everything is a psych out to make our people stop doing the things we need to do to win. We still need people to canvass. We still need people to phone bank. We still need people to get registered. We still need people to vote. People in Oregon, which is going to be too late, but they need to drop off their ballots tomorrow. People in Kentucky are getting ready to vote. It just kind of, we need people to canvass all of California because the canvas plan is getting rebooted. And that's sort of the whole, it all needs to happen still. So every time they do something like this, they're trying to make us feel like we have no hope. They're trying to psych us out in our head so people go, I mean, how many times have you heard when you do talk about, well, she has this, they kind of chose. I mean, it feels like they've chosen already, which is an insane thing if you really think about it. But they're like, oh, they really made up their minds. And you're like, well, why have they made up their minds about anything? Like, and that's
and I've talked to people around the country that think that Bernie Sanders actually already dropped out. They don't think that he's even in it because he doesn't get the media coverage. The media is just talking about Trump versus Hillary, and
actually,
they think, oh, you're just hurting the Democratic Party by sticking in this long, and we're saying, too bad. It's basically. There's a reason why she's not getting almost half of the Democratic Party's vote. Is because she's not that strong of a candidate. She's less likely to beat Trump.
There are two options here with her versus Trump that I'm going to say really, really clearly. Number one is that she gets beat by him, which is what's going to happen if they have a legitimate election against each other, because the states she runs very strongly in are red states. The demographics just don't favor her in any way. It's like California. It's impossible for the state to go red unless every Democrat stayed home. You know what I mean? But the states that, like the South, are the exact opposite, and there are way more of them. That's why it's like battleground states. They're like in the middle. They're like halfway between the South and the North. It's like the Civil War.
Swing states.
Yeah, swing states. They go back and forth depending on the policies of the candidate and where people are, the grassroots in the state, and how effective they're being, really, to some degree. And right now, if she runs against him, she gets creamed in all the swing states because he's so popular and there's so little support for her. But the fear is that Trump has been a ringer for her the whole time, and that he won't run a real campaign when it comes down to it once Bernie's out. And so it kind of puts that fear into everyone, well, then maybe this is a setup. Which is like, if we're even dealing with the potential that might be a thing, it's like we need to get everyone out for California to be a blowout. But we're back to California. Alex Padilla, our Secretary of State, Hillary supporter. And that's the thing, like, everyone was a Hillary supporter before because everyone wanted to go further up the establishment. Alex Padilla probably has eyes on being a senator or a governor one day, and he feels like Hillary Clinton can help make that happen. And that's the reason these people are signed on to her, because they see political growth. But the problem is...
And financial backing.
Which is...
For their campaign.
Which is a scary thought. Now, what we want to do is change the whole thing so people don't get rich in politics, and that they are going to be wealthy still. They're still going to make a lot of money and be relatively well taken care of, but we're trying to make it so that elections are more standardized and more fair in general, and that elections are more even, and we can get the country going the way that actually reflect the people instead of
these particular parties.
Or gerrymandering, which that's a whole other episode.
The money laundering through the state parties.
There's 33 of the states laundered money through the Democratic Party into Hillary Clinton's victory fund, and that money was supposed to go to down ballot candidates, like George Clooney said. But that's not happening. We've followed the money. The money goes directly into battling Bernie Sanders because she's just spending money everywhere.
They're not supposed to tap into that money until the nominee is picked.
Yeah.
There's also at the Cannes Film Festival right now. There's that movie premiering called Clinton Cash.
Yeah.
It's all about all the stuff that they've done and where the money has gone.
I want to hear more about that actually, because it went kind of quiet after they said it was getting launched, and I feel like that's how this whole. There's like the campaign and the anti-campaign, because there's like on the opposition, the anti-campaign is stopping the progressive voice of anything that might hinder the coronation, and that's what they're trying to do on a massive level. That's why we're in a bit like Bernie supporters are in a bit of an echo chamber where we're talking to people who aren't not Bernie supporters, and so they don't know what's going on. Do you know what I'm saying? We're talking to only Bernie people. We dragged you in here. It was so much trouble finding him. So,
alright. So, let's see.
No echo chamber. Sorry.
That brings us to the data breach and all of the the election fraud and the voter suppression and the voter purges.
I think we kind of like covered a lot of that, but I feel like when it comes to the election fraud is such a hard. It's the suppression. I think the suppression is the main thing that is just, the purging people off the voter rolls after registration is closed. That's the thing that is just like so scary, that we have closed registration 2 weeks before voting, which is for no reason, just zero reason. And they say it's to verify voting data to make sure you're not like double registered, but like the amount of money we spend setting up that process and fighting lawsuits is just incredible in comparison to the minute amount of money we would spend just having 1 or 2 cases of voter fraud in the whole state. And this is the first election where we've had legitimate, extensive.
Right, and each state has been a little bit different.
Yeah,
that's, in Arizona.
So you never know really what to prepare yourself for.
But basically, the main factors are one of the things they can do is limit the number of polling sites there are. Like in Arizona, they went from They went from like 200 to 60.
They did it in Guam. They did it in New Hampshire. They did it in Rhode Island. They did it maybe not New Hampshire. I know they did it in Rhode Island. I know they did it in Guam. California's having it happen. Apparently, I've heard there's only going to be 1 voting booth per party at each location.
Right.
Like, so 1 and 1.
Like there'll be one like.
Like you go inside and there's like
one Republican and 1 Democrat, and just everyone.
So 100 people are waiting
and here's
for
the thing,
one of
here's
these?
the real thing. No one's going independent because we're not doing that, and no one's voting Trump because Trump already has it locked up automatically. You can get like 1 vote; it doesn't even matter. And then this is where everyone's going to go, and so it's going to be 1 lane. When we could literally, it just is.
So people are going to wait hours and hours and hours to vote.
They might go home.
Yeah,
they got
because
jobs,
they
they
won't
got kids, they got
Wow.
obligations.
So we're
They're old,
suggesting
handicapped, they
people.
can't stand in
We're
line.
suggesting people vote early. You can vote early right now at it's a secretary's. It's an office. Here we go. We're gonna put something up. So there you go. You can look up more stuff about early voting at the BernieSandersVideos.com. That's BernieSandersVideo.com. A friend of ours puts that together. It's a really fantastic resource. Has a lot of stuff for early voting or how to be a delegate or whatever might interest you. The guy's pretty thorough.
That's BernieSanders.com?
No, well, that's if you want to donate or do a bunch of things. This is BernieSandersVideo.com. It's not with the campaign. It's a grassroots thing. Yeah. So yeah, and that's it's really important to make sure that you are registered and not having any registration problems.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things actually we need to talk about real fast. Why don't you go through the different types of registration?
Yeah, really important. Registering as an independent in the state of California is actually labeled as no party preference. And when you fill out your voter registration form, there's a very, very tiny little checkbox off to the side. You almost won't even see it in the party affiliation category. So if that's how you want to register, it's a little bit more risky. There's more responsibility with that. If you want to vote for Bernie Sanders, you have to request a Democratic ballot at the polls because otherwise they will give you a ballot that doesn't have the presidential candidates on it.
And sorry, go ahead.
Because you're independent, they're going to give you a ballot that doesn't give you the right.
You have to request a party ballot.
So you have to be a part of a party to vote for.
No. In California, you can be an independent, but it's called a no party preference because independent is a Tea Party organization.
Right.
So
and it's actually when you fill out the registration form, it's the very first one is American Independent Party.
Yeah, and they were into resegregation in the 60s.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
You might not want to look into that. So
be very careful you don't accidentally register for that, thinking that means that you're an independent. Because if you're registered with that party, you can't vote at all.
No, because you can only get the ballot for that party, and they have no one running, so you can't vote for anybody. So basically, it's pretty silly. The election should be open. You should be able to vote for anyone. I feel like you should be able to vote for a Republican for one thing and a Democrat for another. If you like the policies or the thing, it's kind of silly. It's all locked up. But this is part of what we're trying to change, and this is part of what we're trying to change. So there's even more. Also, want to say one more
deadline.
And also, no party preference. If you want to get a mail by ballot, you have to request a special mail by ballot. You can still go to your registrar's office, which was on the Bernie Sanders video, the thing we put up.
And the deadline for requesting a crossover party ballot for voting by mail is May 31st.
Yeah, so if that wasn't complicated enough.
Yeah.
So basically, we vote on June 7th as the deadline to vote. The last time you can ask for a mail by ballot is March.
May.
Sorry.
31st.
Yeah, it's week. Some states have done that. New York, if you wanted to switch from independent to Democrat, you had to do it 6 months or before they voted.
Wow.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. So that's a form of suppression. It's the form that everyone thinks is normal because states have rules, and certain states are more suppressed. Ironically, the Democrat states are heavily suppressed, while the Republican states, it happens at the voting booth. They use the electronic voting machines. I mean, how many states come out 66-33 before someone says, wait, what? Apparently a lot, like 12. It's at least 6. So, yeah. So that's kind of like what's happening on both sides. And that kind of falls into gerrymandering too, because they're like rigging the lines of where congressional dates. So.
Another episode.
In California, you can early vote now until up until June 7th. The registration deadline, I don't know if we said this, is the normal registration deadline or the deadline to switch your party preference is May 23rd.
And so you can still vote by affidavit ballot or provisional. I can't remember which one it is in California. If you're not on the rolls, you can still vote by that ballot, but you still have to make sure it doesn't get counted in the initial count. Like Nevada, they can count someone a winner because they had a head count, but once they did the official count, they know one won.
Does the head count determine anything? Like if they get head count...
It determines just night of winner.
Okay, so that night, this is the winner.
They'll say that person's the winner, but that doesn't mean it's been officiated yet. And so that's kind of...
And not every state does it. That's a caucus.
Okay.
And so in California, the affidavit ballots, you have to call, after they verify the results, you then call to make sure your ballot is cast. So even if Bernie wins, we have to win by a large margin. So let's say, hypothetically, they suppress 5% of our voters, which is like 3% of the whole voting tally, depending on the percentages total of the thing. But that is less of a win for us, and that equates to like 20 delegates in California. So anytime they cut our lead back, we don't win. Because it's not just winning isn't enough, we have to win by a large margin. Now, I personally believe that all that just doesn't matter because they've cheated so much and it's gotten so out of control, as we learned in Nevada, which we're going to get back to how out of control it got. Because basically, they've reached a point in some of these states with the conventions where what they ended up doing is passing these shadow rules, doing it without approval, giving themselves lifetime appointments, and then passing rules to close out everything without finishing business. They literally just made a motion to finalize everything, officiate whatever. She seconded her own motion.
Nice.
Seconded her own motion.
I second me.
Yeah, because clearly she has personality issues.
It's called the voice vote. Oh, that voice vote.
Yeah, then she had a voice vote for the
in my
thing,
favor.
and then ran off stage as she had 30 sheriff's officers there in riot gloves ready to tackle stuff. Now they also had people in our crowd knocking people over, tearing delegate things, information so they can vote away from them, throwing chairs. All this violence that they're talking about is actually coming from people not on our side. They're called agent provocateurs. And so we're already having them show up on the Facebook pages and all over places, and they're saying we should be violent in Philadelphia and we should do all this stuff, and they're trying to diminish our message. Even at the Wilton rally, we had people outside with really crude signs, stuff that was very close to violence. Not quite violence, but enough that it was close. And then as soon as we called them out, they got in our face and tried to get aggressive with me. And they're trying to make us look more violent, and they're stealing the media's message. And that's the same thing they're trying to do and everywhere to make us look more violent and more out of control so they have an excuse to lock down more on us. Okay. And that's all part of the propaganda message that they're trying to push here. which is kind of crazy. We're in a world where like the propaganda like is real. It's like they're really
It's like can't you just win by being a good candidate?
Yeah.
Not having this like crazy, manipulation going on.
Yeah, it's hard to really.
Apparently, you can't trust the people. You can only lie and cheat and get what you want. It just doesn't make any sense.
I've lived in LA a long time, so I know that's true. That's sadly not a joke.
Yeah.
It's just.
Okay,
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay, one last thing about.
Sorry, I should feel like I should give a better message, but.
One last thing about voter registration.
Don't do that. Go ahead.
It's very important that even if you have been a lifelong Democrat or lifelong anything, it's very important that you go online and check your voter registration. Make sure that you are still affiliated with the party that you are a member of, or that that you want to vote for.
Get a new registration card. Order a new postcard.
Because such a high level, you have to be 100% sure.
Oregon is voting tomorrow. It's already being tampered with a number of ways.
Yeah, two things are happening.
They vote by mail.
People are either having their party switched mysteriously, so people that you could be, that have been registered Democrats their whole life are suddenly Republicans.
How does that happen?
Exactly. How does that happen?
Yeah, it's never happened before.
Okay,
so there was
somebody
and some people are just
deleted.
Some people are just purged and deleted altogether. Like that's what happened in New York. 126,000 people were just.
That's a lot of people to
Two people actually got fired in New York over it, like very high up, well-paid people. What it really comes down to is there's some question. I think I was going to debate talking about this tonight, but it really comes down to our data people in general. And the campaign's making some major shifts right now, so I don't want to go and say what they've been doing is what they're still going to do. But it comes down to some of the digital technology that they've been leaning on kind of heavily. It gives access to voter data that just shouldn't be accessible by people. Yeah. The events that they do are linked into the super system of voter reg with people who the company, though some parts of it are very helpful for finding volunteers and databases and yada yada yada, they also want us to update our Canvas plan through an app that says, oh, I saw a strong Bernie supporter here. Now that's linked to everything.
Right.
And that it kind of goes hand in hand with whoever is mysteriously changing the stuff has access to this too. They also have access to this information. There's only one place where someone has access to the registration data and our Bernie Sanders thing, and that's at the NGP van company, and I believe they're in Florida, and they are owned by Hillary's 08 tech lead, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz's nephew, who is in charge of the Democratic Party. She's essentially the woman in Nevada who we were talking about, but she runs the whole Democratic Party, and she is setting all this up more or less.
So voters are documented into the application, and so in Nevada, the problems that they were having with their...
Nevada's not a good example because Nevada was early on this caucus, they're having registration problems. Yes, actually, no, you're right. Because yes, the delegates had their registration mysteriously wiped off. Not only that, they knew exactly who those delegates were instantly. And that's the thing, that why we're even looking for those people if they'd already been through the delegate process. Because they knew they were looking to cut out, hypothetically, the strongest Bernie supporters.
And why are there zero Hillary supporters?
They claimed that a few Hillary supporters were affected, but not anything in the numbers. Now, they're trying to say that Bernie supporters offset the numbers because of what happened in the second caucus, but that's all coming back to that 20% of the vote was illegitimately counted in the first caucus. So they're trying to steamroll over that whole idea. And that comes back to how they've managed to do it by wiping these 64 people off the registration rolls, and before they could fight through with their proof that they all had, they closed the doors on them and continued the process without them.
They closed the doors because the time was up, or they closed the door because...
They were because they were getting through.
Because
they started
at 8 of them.
So they literally just shut the door.
And wouldn't let anyone else in.
No reason,
and said that they didn't meet registration needs in time. Yeah.
Well, they basically said, this is your fault. You didn't know the rules. You didn't know the deadline. You didn't
organize well enough.
My question is, well, how did they make it this far into the process without being
So it comes back to the voter data being tampered with by someone, which is a major felony. It's a major felony. That's the thing. This is like 100 years in jail. This is like the extensiveness of it. Plus, pretty much know who did it. So it comes down to the, if you really even think about it, we're using an app that all of our volunteers are putting an app on their phone. Now, what happens when you put an app on your phone? What does it say to you when it says...
your information is able to be used or your contacts.
Accessible. So basically,
your life becomes...
We are giving access to every Bernie Sanders volunteer's smartphone to the opposition so that we can update voter data that we don't need at this stage of the process. Now, here's the really interesting part. We had someone go undercover in Hillary's phone. Now, I don't have any video. That would be fantastic. You know who you are. Look at that. She went undercover. She did a couple phone banking with them. She said they're not using any of this stuff. Even though the company comes from the DNC and the DNC is set up in it, they're auto-dialing. They're not using the event tie-in. Everything is independent of that because they know, I assume it's because they know how easily to be manipulated. So this brings me around to the canvas plan in LA. In California is a little crazy. How do you, now when you say canvassing, what do you think of?
Door-to-door people being
I'm
like,
thinking of pictures
hey,
and
let's
paintings,
talk about Bernie
like actual
Sanders.
canvas.
Okay, that just happened. So, oh boy.
Don't feel bad. I thought that.
It's like we're gonna paint.
I'm gonna paint
Well, essentially, you are painting the town.
Yeah,
with the word of Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, with flyers and whatnot. I think
because before I'm guessing that they put
I don't know.
Did we just figure that out?
Well, we didn't know what GOP meant last time, so it wouldn't surprise me if I stopped putting that together.
You're painting the town.
So basically, what it comes what I'm suggesting is instead of like people going, oh well, I need an app or I need to understand how the turf works or I need to understand this whole process. I think we should just make this whole thing easier. We have a huge rush on us. We have a crisis. People need to check their voter registration regardless of party preference. So there's no reason to limit who we talk to right now because we can talk to anyone about voter registration needing to get checked.
Because everyone needs to vote, and everyone's to be registered to vote.
Exactly, and knowing what happens. So we're just educating people about the voting process. So what I'm saying is we do something called the 100 Door Knock Challenge. And that's challenging every Bernie Sanders supporter to knock on 100 doors in their neighborhood just by printing up a simple black and white flyer we're going to have in the comments that people can just print out at home, cut it up, and go knocking on doors, dropping off flyers. And in the process, find another Bernie Sanders supporter and help them in their 100 door knocks.
Challenge them to the challenge.
Wow, that's wild.
And so that way it becomes a continuous process of 10 people is 1,000 doors. You can print these up at home. Toner is as expensive as blood plasma in some parts of this country, but it's relatively cheap in the big process. I've seen it graph.
Go to the library.
You can get it printed pretty cheaply. You can get them cut up. You can have flyer cutting parties. You can make your own flyers.
And hand them out by the bundle.
And you can just stand by, well, probably one at a time would probably be more effective. Or to canvas groups, connect with other grassroots teams, and meet other people. Don't let anyone stand in the way of you knocking on your door, or knocking on your neighbor's door. This is a good opportunity for us to build that social change in community. Because this opportunity is fleeting, and we have to seize it while it's here. And so that's going to happen, knocking on 100 doors, meeting another Bernie Sanders supporter, and knocking on another 100 doors. And just make a big party out of the whole thing. Just sticking to voter registration needs to get checked. Do you know how to vote early? This message is brought to you by Bernie Sanders
literally
supporters.
Just giving information, not necessarily swaying or anything. It's literally just...
Exactly. And if
people need to be aware of.
And if they want to talk to you about Bernie Sanders and go, he's still in this? Really? I didn't think that was serious. That fairness alone is going to make people want to investigate him more.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's all it takes. Because there's a media blackout, and we're trying to break the blackout. And that happens by knocking on every door. And knock on them twice. Knock again until you talk to someone. It's not...
So, like, make sure you write down, I didn't get an answer, and then come back. Like, you want me to go...
Well, you should know if you're hitting your neighborhood, and then once you get more people, you can expand into other neighborhoods, and if you're overlapping, then just make a bigger group and hit a college. We only have a couple of more days of... When this comes out, we're only going to have another, weekend of voter registration, and then it's targeted canvassing Democrats only, because only Democrats and no party preference can vote for him. So at this moment, we have basically another less than a week from when this is going to come out to get as many people registered and make sure they check their registration. then if we have a massive switch that happens afterwards, at least people know it's happening.
Yeah.
All right. Also, moving forward, we do need to focus on phone banking. Again, there's been
God, it's so true.
Yeah, it's been a big drop off. Before, I mean, I remember when we were phone banking in New York, and it was a really big goal, and we were smashing the goal every day. And now it's sort of slowly tapered off,
and also it's not just California on June 7th. It's North and South Dakota. It's Montana. It just there's like 8 or 9 states coming up. We got Puerto Rico in a little bit. There's a lot of little things that we need to pay. Yeah, no, New Jersey. Oh my God.
New Jersey and
they're talking New Jersey is going to be New York all over again.
Huh?
They're saying New Jersey is going to be New York all over, and they're saying that the voter registration rolls are having the same issue already there, and it's like it's just that's what I'm hearing.
I don't know about the purging, but I know that New Jersey is similar to California in the fact that if you are unaffiliated, you still have to change your registration to Democrat, but you can actually change it the day of at the polls.
So, really, you can do day of registration then?
Yes.
Okay, well that's
only
it can't be New York.
Only if you're unaffiliated though. You can't switch. You can't switch from Republican to Democrat.
Okay, so someone just made a Republican. Okay.
So as a Democrat, I can't vote for Republican, and I can't change my party. Do I just not vote at all?
Oh God, that was the scariest truth ever. No, just no. You vote automatically. Just no. I don't even know what the question is. No, you vote.
Wait, you mean?
Like if I'm a Democrat. Oh, go for it.
Oh,
no, break it down because I
Okay.
not quite
Basically,
sure.
people vote by party, and they want people to be like you're a Republican, so you'll vote for whatever Republican is running. That's a bunch of nonsense. You should be able to vote for whoever you want, but because no one's taken over one party effectively, and corporate interests have turned us all into these shattered bits on the ground, trying to make it alive. Like right now, there's a push for Bernie to be an independent, or the United this party, the progressive that, or this, or whatever it is. And it's like, no, everyone needs to be a Democrat until the convention. If the convention decides to burn itself down, which is not us, because they're ruining themselves, it's a hypothetical, not actually inciting violence, because it's really about them burning the bridge. They want to burn the bridge to all of Bernie's voters, that's their choice. But that's when we decide to leave in mass to wherever Bernie tells us to go, because right now he's still our presidential candidate. Now when the campaign is over, or whatever happens, everyone can fracture again and decide, or we can stay united, and that's really up to how well we stay organized right now to our singular goal,
which is being nominated.
You know what? It's not. It's a political revolution and initiating social change. Bernie Sanders is not the goal. He is a step in a part of the process.
Couldn't you do, like, this is totally hypothetical, but if Bernie Sanders does not become the Democratic nominee, it's Hillary Clinton, but on the day of the presidential vote, everyone just wrote on their ballot Bernie Sanders. And it's like an overwhelming amount of people and everyone wanted Bernie Sanders. Wouldn't that be the voice of the people? Like, couldn't they totally pull that?
So they have something called the Electoral College here, and if you have a write-in votes, don't gain electoral points, and the actual count doesn't really matter.
Really?
Yeah, so it's all
so
big
it's
game.
essentially like a protest.
Yeah, but it wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's all very complicated, but I think ultimately we've got to stick to our guns, we got to drive the force, we got to march on the convention, we have to put pressure on the superdelegates, we have to continue to do the caucuses, we have to continue to put pressure just everywhere we can. The big thing I think right now is that is not wasting our time, but not letting the troll bots that are out there, policing the internet to control the message, when the sense of A, don't let them eat up your time, and B, just figure out how to get... I don't have a beef for that. There's such a mess. It's such a mess because what they do and the control factor, and people are just so broken by the whole process, but at the same time we have to fight them. So keeping your head on is really important when you're doing all your online activity and figuring that out for yourself, but don't waste a lot of time with that. But we have a lot to do moving forward, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, we talked about all the ways that we need to volunteer. We need to keep pushing, canvassing, phone banking, spreading word to your friends.
Texting is back up.
Texting is back up. Yes, exactly. But I also want to just talk about why we should still be fighting, because obviously the math is a little bit rough right now, and we do have to come back and close the gap quite a bit. But the reason we don't give up is because win or lose, we have to show the Democratic Party that we're not sheep and we don't just fall in line with corruption and a weak candidate, just because they want us to just vote blue no matter who. It's not really a sustainable system.
They've spent so long disenfranchising independent voters, they forgot that they have to listen to them when they switch their party to vote for them.
Right. And now we're paying attention more than ever. We're more connected than ever. So it's, the whole entire game is changing. That's why this is like such a historical election. And if anything, we're staying in it because we're exposing all this corruption.
True that.
We're sort of like holding the mirror up and saying, this is what's really going on, and we're not, going to commit to that. Another important thing to remember is that Bernie beats Trump by a much larger margin. Do we have a meme?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so Trump is starting to catch up, and possibly, I think there's even been some polls where he beats Hillary, right?
Yeah, by like 5 points or something crazy.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people bring up, Trump can't win because he's not going to get the minority vote and he's not going to get the female vote, but we also have to consider there's two candidates in this, and if it were Hillary, she is potentially not going to get a huge portion of her own party. So it's not only about what he won't get, it's about what she won't get.
There is one huge advantage, though, to Hillary Trump, and nobody's talking about that. I just want to bring it real fast. Mm-hmm. Hillary copycatted Bernie so much. I don't want to lie. I'm very interested to see her copycat Trump. Not gonna because they are with the comb.
I was saying she's gonna go
just spray tan. Just like I feel like I don't really want to see that. But I'm just saying I feel like someone needs to do something with that.
Also, the states coming up, the remaining states. How many states are left?
Oh God, 8 or 9. It's
8 or 9.
Really good.
They're actually looking really good for us, and there's a lot of delegates at stake. So we can catch up. We can pull ahead by a small margin and pledge delegates, or we can tie, or even if we come just slightly behind, it's still looking very good.
There's enough wiggle room because of Nevada, Arizona, and now Nevada. Sorry, New York, Arizona, and now Nevada, because of how they were handled. In these situations, you can argue that delegates should be reassessed and then be cut in half or cut out completely. They did it in a way Hillary's already agreed to it in the past. Bernie, I suspect, wants to play a clean campaign, so he doesn't want to invalidate states to give himself an advantage, even though someone else gave themselves delegates to give them an advantage. It's just, there's a part of this whole thing that we've said that Bernie he's our candidate, but the revolution is pushing him, and that's really kind of, I think it's very true. The man is.
The revolution will continue no matter what.
Right. He's our voice.
Right.
Not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He gave a whole speech about how he wasn't anyone's savior, and I think that's really true because we're supposed to be our own saviors. We're supposed to be here helping ourselves, and he's just trying to give us the tools to do that, which we don't have at the moment.
And
we don't have them.
And one last thing, I'm not going to get too deep into it because there's already so much information about this.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed.
I
was like, I'm overwhelmed.
You're overwhelmed? Yeah, no, I mean, but it's the...
We're making them vote, by the way. I'm just putting that out there. We're making them vote.
I'm gonna vote, jeez.
It's the FBI investigation.
Which one?
Huh?
Which one?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. The email.
Which email one? There's 3 or 4 different ones that all connect to the email.
Hillary has numerous times said, this is just a security review.
But then the FBI came out and said, investigation's in our name.
Yeah, well, this is what the head of the FBI, James Comey, this is what he said. He said, security review. I'm not even familiar with that term. We don't do those. We're conducting an investigation, because that's what they do.
Wow.
They have the FBI.
Yeah, it's in their
they don't do
name.
this.
They're trying to clean it up.
Investigation, doing an investigation. What?
Exactly.
Weird.
And a lot of people don't
Now they do
understand
security reviews.
really how scary that whole situation is. But essentially, government asked to see her emails, and she deletes about 30,000.
Oh, and not only, don't forget, deleted them poorly. She didn't reverse wipe her thing where you fill it with stuff. And it found out that I don't have these 30,000 emails. Well, guess who did? Her cloud server backup.
Of course!
And then they had to,
Did she not see Cameron Diaz in sex tape?
No one saw that. No one saw that. No, probably not. No, so.
And now there's the rumors that Russia
one
has.
person did already.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't either. Sorry.
So
Anyway.
lot factor.
Yeah, so Russia came out and said we have 20,000 emails, and they're debating on releasing them because her server was hacked by Russia, the Middle East,
Oh, I
like
heard
all
about
of
that.
places we
Gucci
know.
fur?
Wow.
Is it
Yeah.
Gucci fur or Goosifer?
Gucci?
The
I
hackers.
assume it's a play on Gucci with Lucifer.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Please
But
don't hack
Gucci-
me.
I've heard
don't.
both. But anyway,
I've never heard the name before,
He's
so I'm
been
not entirely sure how it's
extradited
pronounced.
to the United
Yeah.
States to testify. You know, there's all these people that are.
Russia came forward and said that they would hack into Hillary's emails for fun, and they would always know what was going
No,
on.
you're
and
thinking
they had
about
full access
you're
of
thinking
it.
about Lucifer.
Yeah.
No, there was a thing on.
Well, I know Russia has access. There's no
I'm sure they
Yeah,
had.
someone
I'm sure they were in
came
for
out
more
and
than
said
fun.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wish that
it-
was.
It is.
It's really
it is
not funny. It's really
No,
scary.
What are the
No,
emails
why is
about?
Russia coming forward saying that they hacked into her emails? I mean, I don't understand people aren't taking that more seriously.
I'm not actually
hearing
mad at
more
Russia
about
for
that.
it. I'm actually mad that it was there to be hacked. And that's kind of where it's like, of course they hack. That's what they do. We hack them. Everybody's hacking
You're
everybody.
supposed
That's
to
you're supposed
stay
to-
in the firewall so you don't get hacked. No, I'm just gonna put it through my Gmail. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it
Alright,
on my
well,
phone.
Google is.
Dave had a
very
good
safe.
question.
Yeah, but not
Oh.
for the price of
Well, my question was like, what were the emails even about to where like her being hacked?
Okay. Here's the deal. The government officials have a government email system, okay, and it's secure and it's encrypted. And what Hillary did was set up her own server in her house in New York, completely out of Washington.
It was a server that they already used for her husband for like Clinton Foundation stuff, and it sat in like a closed off room of a basement, like a bathroom or something like that. Essentially, totally exposed.
So she has her own email system completely,
Which, by the
completely
way,
separate from the government.
her email was HotRod17 because it's Hillrod is her name, Hot Rod. So it's like her name is Hillary Rodham Clinton. So it's Hillrod became Hot Rod, and 17. Keep in mind, she had this email in 08 and 09. No, 2017 is the year she was going to become president.
Yeah.
And she already had this plan
She planned
when she
it.
had the email server set up.
Wow.
And that's where
That's
how we
confident.
know that she's been setting this up this whole time because of her email address.
rigging the system to win, you're
Right.
pretty confident it's gonna
So,
go well.
Yeah, she has 33 chairs or secretary of states or something in every state. Someone somewhere to rig it, somewhere in some part of the voter count, delegate process, voter machine, suppression, or the absolute like governor support to just push through whatever they want. And then now it came down to a chair taking over a caucus process so that they can win 2 more delegates at the Nevada chair to the point that they completely use fascism. I mean, it's truly fascism.
So when she was asked to hand over her emails in the name of transparency to see what's on them, she deleted over 30,000 of them and said that they were just personal emails.
30,000 emails?
Like
Yeah, we're
yoga
talking about
classes and stuff.
30,000 emails over the course of 4 years. So you do the math. How many? It's like hundreds of emails.
So they basically released them all, and they're all searchable through WikiLeaks and a couple other groups, very easy to find. And there are a number of them that are entire redacted PDFs. They're like, there was an image on there we can't see because basically the FBI got them. They got them off the server. Then the State Department got them to redact stuff that was classified, and then it got sent back to the FBI because the FBI can't see certain things. They could tell what was redacted and what was classified.
Shouldn't. It just makes no sense to me that she could set up a completely separate server. I mean, shouldn't all of her emails have some level of like?
Well, apparently at the time,
classification? She said, "I didn't know."
At the time,
I didn't know
emails
that
kind
emails
of
were classified.
No, okay.
Well, that's an even worse answer. You should know these things.
And her other excuses.
Well, actually, there's an email where she says to strip the classified and then push it through her actual. There's one particular email where she does it. There's also another email where she talks about how the secure line won't work and how they should just call through their normal phone. The guy's like, no. No, definitely not. She was having her assistants use her passwords to remove the emails from the black rooms or the shadow, whatever you call them, put it onto their Blackberries into her network so that she could get her emails because the CIA wouldn't give her a private Blackberry like they had given to Obama.
And then, you know, her excuse for setting up the server is, well, everybody else was doing it.
And the thing was that there's no
It's like a
rule
child.
implicitly saying she couldn't, but she should have known
It should be
better.
like
Common
sense.
So let's
sense,
get out of here. I feel like California is important. There's a lot of states to phone bank. Everyone needs to text and canvas, and these are some of the reasons why it's so important that we drive so hard. I'm actually trying to run like a special secret phone bank group to for people doing custom phone bank channels to find volunteers all over LA. If you know me on Facebook and you find this, looking for volunteers. So volunteers to find volunteers for other volunteers.
There's also going to be events coming up.
There is an event coming up in Los Angeles. We're still working on the exact date, but we do have a very large warehouse available for some type of event for Bernie Sanders supporters, and we want to do something where canvassers and people that are supporting can get in for almost free.
Yeah.
Nothing in LA is free.
That's gonna be a hoot. It's gonna be a party, right?
It's gonna be a party. It's
Absolutely.
gonna be half barnstorm, half rally, half all night, whatever we can get away with. So
Okay.
great
Alright,
show,
so,
guys.
yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
I think we covered it all and more.
I
yeah.
think we covered enough for tonight.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for joining us, and
Till next time.
till next time, get out there and do.
Yeah.
Do your 100.
Yeah, 100 door knock. Do your 100 door knock challenge and challenge
Do it.
somebody else to do 100 doors. We're gonna post a flyer in the comments.
And have
Make
a drink.
Make it nice and easy for everybody, and that's it. We're done.
All right, feel the burn.